Hey guys, this is Fluff, and I'm going to be doing a patch 6.88b pub support recommendations video. Before we get into it, I'd just like to say that don't feel free to leave comments in the comment section of YouTube or any of my social media outlets, links down below in the description, because I get a lot of ideas from these places. Usually someone brings something to my attention that I might have overlooked or something that I feel like I can do rather simply. And for those type of things, I just encourage that kind of communication in general. I respond to most of it, and I definitely read, I'd say like 99% of the comments, even the bad ones. In this video, I'll mainly be talking and hovering over some of the heroes here on this list, and later down the line, I'll probably go into a custom game lobby just to illustrate a couple more points. Alright, let's get right into it. This guide is going to be aimed more at the intermediate side, just because a lot of the concepts that I'll be explaining require somewhat of a decent understanding of mainly when your carry is going to match up well versus the enemy offlaner. Although there will be a portion of this video that's very good for beginners, and you can simply just ignore the part where I talk about the counter picking and just stick to the heroes that I generally think will be very powerful in lane. Okay, so the format of this video will be simply listing 3 support heroes that overall I feel will generally be good in your games. They'll be good in pretty much any lane, given your carry needs heavy babysitting or if he can take care of himself. And then I'll be giving 3 more heroes that are a bit more advanced. And I'll try to list out when they'll be good and how they're kind of like they're more focused on dealing with the enemy's lineup in the game compared to the lane so much as the first 3 heroes I'll be listing. With those heroes, those are the ones that you'll kind of need to know what kind of carry matchups you'll be facing in the lane, just because those heroes don't necessarily have the strongest laning potential. Okay, so this is for you beginners. This can range from anyone from 0 MMR to the highest MMR, and these are all pub recommendations. Let's just keep that very clear. In competitive, you have more room to express like creativity. You'll be able to use heroes effectively as a team. Players generally understand each other better, and you're not really going to be getting difficult lanes. While in pubs, any number of factors can influence your game. Right now, we'll be focused on carry versus just one offlaner, not dual lanes or anything like that. Just straight up, you're one support. You're all alone. You don't have another support. Maybe he's roaming, but generally he's not in the lane. And you want to know, like, hey, Fluff, what 3 heroes can I pick in any game and do well with? All right. So first off, I think, and these are going to be a little off meta. I don't think people generally pick these heroes, but in my opinion, this will be the best for anyone who wants to play support. And just generally wants to do well. Okay, so my first choice is Rasta. So I'd put Rasta as my first choice, whether you know what you're playing against or not. If you know, like, you can first pick this hero, run it in the safe lane as your 5 position support, and he's generally going to do really well. So the reason why Rasta is my first pick is because he is like very effective at harassment, and he's very effective at using the tools that you have available to you. You have very limited regen in lane. You'll probably end up having 2 to 3 tangos from the opening pool, and you'll have probably 1 to 2 clarities. And I'll show you the build later on. Just hold on to that. But the reason why is because He's going to be able to nuke out the enemy offlaner very easily with the Fork Lightning. You generally just spam that ability starting level 1. And then you have the Shackle, which is very, very effective at locking down single target units, and it's very, very good at actually just straight up killing many offlaners. And the reason why he's especially good right now is because with the prominence of these very like more specifically like the Void, I was gonna say heroes that are more elusive, but in retrospect, you'll see a lot of these heroes like Void or perhaps Darkseer who are very proficient at dodging ganks or just getting out with their escape mechanisms. But when you play a hero like Rasta, you can constantly keep them in check. Rasta has pretty good stats. His base damage is good. He'll be able to spam Fork Lightning, and you'll be able to cancel clarities and healing styles. But more so, when you hit level 1, 2, 3, you should be able to make the decision to level up Shackle or Lightning or the Hex. When I'm playing versus heroes like Void, I'll probably end up going to Shackle at 3 as opposed to the Lightning, because the Lightning at level 1 does pretty good damage already. And when you can simply lock down those heroes, generally your carry is going to be able to get to you in lane and pretty much finish off the opponent. All you have to do with Rasta is chip down the opponent, set them up for a kill, get into position, and shackle them. And the rest is history. I feel like the reason why Rasta shines at the top of this list is because he has very strong laning phase, very strong disables, which are sorely lacking in pubs, and you're going to have the ability to go for a blink in the mid game, and you have that instant hex. So when a Rasta 5 position is off map, he's going to be able to pressure the opponent. He's going to pressure them in lanes, on objectives, meaning Roshan towers with the wards, and he's going to be able to gank very effectively. And for Rasta, I would just recommend going Arcane Boots Blink. Alright, moving on. My second and third pick, these don't really have an order, but I guess I'll just arbitrarily rank Bane a bit further, and I'll say Bane and Skywrath. So let me explain these two. The thing that all three of these heroes, Rasta, Bane, and Skywrath, share are that they're all very effective and focused on the lanes. A lot of times they can win lanes just because their abilities are so powerful, and they all pretty much share the ability to create kill conditions by themselves. They're self-sufficient. It doesn't matter if your safe laner has no disables, low farm, low movement speed, whatever. All these heroes are going to be able to set up the kill. So Bane doesn't really have any particularly great strengths in the game, but in lane he's amazing. He sets up really well for your roaming supports, sets up well for your carry. His stats are amazing across the board, and with the brain sap changes at level 1, you can spam brain sap to keep your HP sustained and definitely trade really effectively with the enemy offlaner. So he's definitely my number 2. And then really quick, Skywrath. Skywrath is probably third on this list because his skills are very strong in lane. Pretty much you just spam the Mystic Flare. Very self-explanatory. When you see kill opportunities, you can go for the concussive shot, the W, for the slow, and then silence when needed. He won't have any problems versus the Void, for example, is very prominent, or the Darkseer, and he pretty much he has high movement speed. He's got it all for lane. A lot of times, even if you're not the best player, with these three heroes, you'll be able to effectively zone out the lane and get to your pulls and whatnot. So for a Skywrath pick, I would look for synergies such as having a Void or Beastmaster or just any generally decent disables to throw your Mystic Flare on top of. And I would also look a bit deeper to see if potentially the opponent has very mobile heroes like Weaver, Morphling, Ember, heroes that you know, getting silence would pretty much lock them down completely until they pick up something like Manta or BKB. So, yep. All right, those three will pretty much do the job really well for the majority of you. Um, so the one downside for these, my three picks for overall best supports would be that they might not necessarily fill certain niche counter pick opportunities that other supports might fill in the game, but Dota is a game of lanes, and plenty of times I've won lanes and just straight up won games. And to that effect, I would say in pubs, the heroes that you pick, especially in lower MMR, don't really have as much of an impact compared to just playing your role out correctly or just being generally effective early on as a support player. So I really wouldn't worry about it if you're a beginner. Don't let it frustrate you. Okay, and now for counter picks. So the three heroes that I chose for my counter pick best overall supports would be Lion at the helm, then I would say Disruptor, and then Venge. So the thing that all three of these heroes share are that they aren't necessarily very strong in lane. These heroes can get bullied out. They don't make really great use of the item build that I'll show you later on this video. And they pretty much rely on the carry to synergize with them, or at least be able to contribute in some way, or have a carry that can be a bit more self-sufficient so that you can build up your levels, so that you can do the pulls, and so that you can kind of just be there to lock down the opponent when your carry needs you to do so. And another thing about these counter picks are that they're I'll try to mention a couple of situations, probably not be able to cover them all, where you're going to be able to use them to counter like certain aspects of the opponent's lineup. Generally, the hard carry or the 2 position. But yeah. Okay, so my first pick is Lion. And just like the Rasta, these 2 heroes are at the top of their respective lists because they have the Blink Hex initiation aspect to their hero. Blink Hex is such a powerful spell combination because, you know, Hex is basically a 6,000 gold item or so, you know, roughly for the Hex. You get that you get that available to you at any level that you choose to scale it up. And it's one of the best ways to gank heroes or put pressure on the map. It's pretty much the only support spell that will be scaling throughout the game that'll be universally loved by your teammates and hated by your opponents, because you're going to be able to catch them out before they hit their special items such as BKBs or Mantas, and generally it's very safe and reliable. So that's the main draw of Line. Second thing is he's got that Impale, which adds another layer of CC. In pubs. I think crowd control disables are exactly what you want to bring to the table as a support, because a lot of times those games are a bit more messy. There'll be more mistakes or more opportunities where people are out of position, and if you can create opportunities for your team to get ganks or defend or attack objectives, you're going to be like very, very effective. And then last but not least, we obviously know about Finger. It's high burst damage. It contributes to the ganks. Very effective spell. It's pretty much going to be useful the entire game. But yeah, Lion, not the best in lane. I would suggest going very simple build like Tranquil's Blink. Doesn't have to be any more elaborate than that. Just like the Rasta, you get the Blink Dagger, and you're pretty much set for the rest of the game. Okay, so when you want to pick Lion is You want to pick line generally versus heroes that are susceptible to instant hex. And that's pretty much every hero in the game, really, besides maybe Slark. So that's why I have him at the top of my list. Prey vs. Juggernaut, Lifestealer, Sven, PL, Anti-Mage, for example, just all these heroes, all these carries, favors everything. So line is very self-explanatory. Okay. Now, Disruptor. Disruptor is my second pick. He's a bit more difficult in lane. I would say that Disruptor needs you need to have a better understanding of what you're actually countering. It's relatively simple, but you have to know what. There are some deceiving heroes, and I'll try to list what those are. But mainly, you want to pick Disruptor when you see a lot of like very mobile carries. Like probably the best counter Disruptor is going to be the best hero for Disruptor to counter on the opponent team would be like Slark, because when you get your Q on the Slark, even if he can't pack it off, and when he ultimates, you're going to be getting this trailing vision of him, and you'll always be able to pull him back, and he can't get out of the Static Storm combination. It's just a very effective combo. Probably the best. Heroes like Storm, Ember, Anti-Mage, Morphling, all these heroes that rely on mobility really fall prey to Disruptor. I would say his main weakness is like BKB, and you have to be careful for some hero interactions like Phantom Lancer, where even if you have your Q spell on him, he can doppel walk off the glimpse, and he will not be affected whatsoever. Or heroes like Lifestealer, who, you can catch him out. It's still effective, but not the best, because he can just rage it off. Interactions like that. But, and another hero I just thought of right now is like Juggernaut. Okay, but Dota is a very complex game. There's a lot of things to think about. I'm just trying to list the basic archetype of heroes that you want to counter out. But Disruptor is probably going to be the best catch that you can afford pre-BKB, so that's somewhere like from the early mid game to like 25 minutes or so before heroes start picking up their BKBs. Or if you know that your opponent's carry doesn't like to build BKB, it could be really effective. Okay, and the last one is Venge. So Venge is less about the carries and more about the team comp. Venge is most effective when against heroes like Void or Bat. Probably those are two of the best ones probably to counter out, because the instant repositioning ability is basically one of the best ways to save your carry in the game compared to the other ones. And Venge, not only that, but Venge has that disable that I was always talking about. Very good objective taking ability and synergizes really well with carries in general. The only thing is Venge suffers in lane due to her short range. You're going to be lacking regen, but overall Venge is really, really strong pick. Synergizes with your lineups really well most of the time these days, and is pretty good versus a lot of those common picks in the meta right now. But generally, you want to pick this hero when you feel like, if you look at the opponent's lineup and if they can jump your carry, lock him down and blow him up, or just generally control him, having that swap utility as a counter pick is going to be really effective for your team. Okay, so I was expecting to click around more on this list, but I guess I just couldn't do that while multitasking. So anyway, we'll go into a custom lobby and I'll explain the last thing that I think will help everybody out in pubs, which is the item build. So we all know the struggles of the item build these days by now. I've figured out something that I think can be effective for you. So let's just spawn out some heroes. That's our offlaner, and let's have our mid laner. So what you want to do is just courier. Oh, that guy by the courier. Jesus. Okay, I'll buy the items first, and then we'll do it, right? The item build is one courier, one tango, one pair of sentries, only one observer, that's the key thing, instead of two, and then two clarities. And then I'll explain why. So, one up, one sentry, one tango, two clarities. So what I meant to do was pull these heroes like you would. You know, you want to pass the ob basically as soon as possible to your offlaner just so they can stop crying. And then what I like to do is I like to give one tango to mid, because chances are the other support will be like, oh man, he bought everything, I'll give him one. But occasionally you have like very greedy support that doesn't give him a tango, and a lot of times I'll just be like, hey, we'll be waiting for the rune. I'll look at his inventory, I'll look at my support, and he won't share it even if I ask. So I just be like, fuck it, I'll give it to you. But I usually save that till much later. Okay, so why not the extra ob? Well, if you go 2 obs, you can only afford 1 clarity, and I believe that in this patch, compared to the old guide that I was giving you guys about support, where I suggested 8 tangos, buying out the sentry, and forcing the other support to buy the 2 obs, in this meta, it's not really viable for you to have, well, it is viable, but it's not efficient to have 3 supports, or 2 supports down in the safe lane. It is more efficient and better for your team overall to just have some roaming 4 position hero, someone who can either benefit from the jungle or impact the lanes, like those Ricky Maros and bounties, or spirits, things like that. So generally it is up to you to buy everything. So with that in mind, I am like going with the most minimalistic item build. Occasionally you'll have supports who will be like, hey, I can buy this or that, and in that case, if your support will buy you something, your other support partner will buy something, I would pick up like a salve or something and still buy 1 ob, because the extra regen is going to be really nice. And if he's really generous, you could pick up maybe like a branch, because if you have a branch and you have 2 tangos or 3 tangos, you really want to plop the branch down, eat it, and benefit from the double regen. So anyway, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. I had Skywrath, Bane, and Rasta as my overall picks. So these heroes, they're all going to benefit from the double clarity. With Rasta, you spam out the lightning. Bane, you have the brain sap. And then with Skywrath, you have the arcane bolt. My suggestion is to use these skills to the best of your ability, and one tip I have is not to always spam it necessarily on cooldown. Like, sometimes it's better to wait for your opponent to start trading with you, or like attempting to trade, and then start nuking them down, because that way you're guaranteed to almost always put out more DPS than them, and it's a little bit more efficient on your mana. Because let's say that I'm playing Skywrath, and I spammed like tons of arcane bolts. I maybe got a couple hits in, but the guy was always, off in the distance and kind of just absorbing the shock. Well, what happens is, because I wasn't trading with him, I'm gonna blow through my mana way quicker than I normally would, and he is gonna just salve up or eat all his tangos and come back in lane, and then I'll have no mana, and then I have to clarity up, and then clearing up takes time, and that time is gonna allow him to catch up in lane or get a little bit more than you would. So you want to just trade more effectively with that one tip. That being said, I think with heroes like Sky or Rasta, not necessarily Bane. Bane, you'd almost always want to be efficient with training the HP. But with these two, you can start off the lane by throwing out your spell, because you're gonna want to get your mana start regening, and it's efficient. All right, so yeah, these heroes all benefit. With the counterpick ones that I mentioned, like the Venge, Lion, and the Disruptor. These heroes don't benefit a ton from clarity, so I would say you can optimize the build by dropping one clarity and picking up a branch, because the extra HP will help these heroes trade more effectively compared to these heroes who have very good spam ability and high nuke damage and lane control and all that. They're probably less likely to take damage. Alright guys, that was a lot more than I thought I'd be saying, because I tend to always go on tangents. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. And there is honestly a lot of information here, and if you want clarification, go ahead and leave it in the comments. And you might be thinking like, hey, why is there so many videos coming out recently? Well, part of it's luck, but the other thing is I'm going to be away from home for the next week or so, and I kind of felt inspired to just do one more. Currently it's pretty late at night. I'm just doing this one really quickly. Hope you guys enjoy it. Sorry that the quality is not that great, or the production's not that great, or whatever. I'm still learning, honestly. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave comments on my social media or down below, and to follow me. All the links are in the description, especially on Twitch and on Twitter. Those are the two things that I really, really would appreciate you guys following me on. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll definitely be trying to put out more content in the future. And yeah, thanks guys. FLUFF out.